Welcome back, everyone, to Hashtag Griff Sports. I'm Joe Retigliano, and I'm joined by Kyle Ferrara at the desk this week. We'll get to Rocks in Studio B shortly. However, our winter sports officially closed their season while we were away on spring break.
That's right, Joe. While most of you were on a beach somewhere, the men's basketball team and hockey teams finished up their seasons. The hockey team went back to the AHA Frozen Four on a trio of goals by Mitch McCrank at Bentley, and for the second straight season, they advanced to the championship. Tell them how, Joe.
And not to be outdone, the 7th-seeded Griffs took on 1st-seeded Mercyhurst in the semifinals at the Blue Cross Arena in Rochester, New York, and played the longest game in Canisius history of 93 minutes and 30 seconds, coming away with a 5-4 win over the Lakers, with the game winner coming from Stephen Farrell, his first game of the season, or first goal of the season, and no bigger than that one right there.
A thrilling game in the semis, but going up against Robert Morris just under 24 hours later, the Griffs would fall in the championship game, 7-4 to the Colonials. The Griffs were within 2 goals most of the way. However, after scoring a goal of their own, they could not withstand the Colonial counterattack, allowing 3 of the 7 goals in less than a minute.
After scoring a goal, they just couldn't stand the counterattack. Now in Studio B, we have Jordan LaBarber from the Griffin in studio to talk about the latest Ice Griff news that has been swirling around the program. He's with Rocks. We'll send it over there right now.
Thanks, Joe. Here with Jordan to talk about the Ice Griffs following their loss to Robert Morris, with the score 7-4. In general, speaking on Canisius's downfall, it's been talked about that their inability to hold on to the momentum was kind of what it came down to. And is that true in your opinion?
Yeah, well, just being there, it seemed like every time they scored, this was going to be the time when they started to come back, because they had done it so many times throughout not only this postseason but last postseason as well. So you had that feeling, and then each time Robert Morris came right back and added another goal of their own. And I said it was probably a great game for if you're a Robert Morris fan, because you never had to be too nervous, at least for more than 30 seconds.
Right. Looking into the net specifically, what can you say about Tony Capianco's performance?
Well, he's had a pretty much stellar, at least his last 2 years, playoff career, where he's been almost perfect in the net. And in this game, he just wasn't. The last goal in particular, last couple of goals were relatively weak, I'm sure, for his standards, with the kind of excellence he typically brings. So it was a tough game, but I mean, they come to everybody. Unfortunately, his tough game was in the championship.
Not all ends dark for the Griffs.
No.
We have 3 seniors who went ahead and signed contracts. Can you tell us a little bit about those players?
Yeah, well, Tony had a quick turnaround, because he signed on with the Elmira Jackals of the ECHL, as did Ben Danford, defenseman, and Kyle Gibbons went to Toledo of that league. Now, Danford is interesting because he was called up to the AHL that same day when he initially signed to play the Manchester Monarchs. They're the AHL affiliate of the Los Angeles Kings. So he's going to be, don't want to say necessarily on the doorstep of the NHL, because it's a lot of work to get to that next level. But being at the top affiliate, it's going to be an interesting experience for him.
And the overall morale of the team in the future, I mean, certainly exciting to see those seniors go on and continue their careers. What can you say for this upcoming season for them next year?
Well, they do lose a lot, but they return a lot too. And what the past couple of years have been is it's kind of a perfect storm, where you've suddenly had this success, playoff success, because regular seasons weren't that good. You had this playoff success right on the eve of moving into the Harbor Center, beginning the first collegiate partnership with an NHL team. That should really bode well for recruiting. From what I've heard, it already has. I don't know if you can expect the same amount of success immediately, because you do lose those seniors, but the program, the future's looking bright.
Definitely exciting. We're going to send it back to Kyle and Joe at the desk to wrap up about hockey.
Thanks, Rocks. And Joe, while we're on the subject of hockey, some other quick news regarding the Griffs. Former Canisius hockey player Vinny Scarcella won ECHL Rookie of the Year. Of course, that's where Gibbons and Capobianco are going. Also, 2 longtime assistants are no longer with the program. Amy Moritz of the Buffalo News reports that there was a mutual agreement between B.J. Adams and John Daniel. They would no longer be working under Dave Smith.
Yeah, and that's big news as far as the coaching staff and really Griffs hockey is concerned. There's been such consistency for the Griffs in the coaching staff. You know, B.J. Adams has been with the Griffs for 5 years, and John Daniel was in his 4th season this year. So it was great. You know, they really brought a lot to the program. I know Dave Smith came into a communication and sports class I had, you know, last year, and you know, he said in class when he was lecturing about how B.J. Adams was his right-hand man, and you know, I'm really surprised that they're going. And Adams told Moritz that, you know, this is another chance to really improve his, you know, his coaching and development in professional hockey. So I would assume, you know, something is going to, you know, provide itself for them in the near future. But I'm really surprised that, you know, so quickly they're no longer with the program. So 2 spots to fill for the Griffs. That'll be something we'll have to keep an eye out for here in the coming weeks. And I honestly don't know who right now is on the docket to fill those shoes.
Yeah, hard to say because that news did just come out recently, and we got basketball to wrap up too. We're going to talk about that a little later. Jordan and Rock still in Studio B. That'll be coming right up after this break.
There was one day that we had just done the cardiovascular unit, you know, in class that day. And then right after class, I went over to the Vascular Institute, volunteered, you know, put the scrubs on. And one of the doctors asked me if I wanted to see an open heart surgery. And so I said, yeah, really? Sure.
I came into Canisius as a, you know, obviously as a freshman, not really sure what I wanted to do. I ended up taking a digital media arts class, and that really just kind of jump-started, you know, my career.
And I think being where we are in the city and in the world with the medical campus that we have here is really an opportunity that I wouldn't have anywhere else.
It's more than just academics. Meet different people. Go out and do things. There's so much more to college. It's an experience.
I instantly fell in love with doing video work, graphic design. I started pursuing more and more opportunities in the school, whether it was doing admissions videos on the sides. I did a couple videos for alumni relations, the president of the college, and then I actually got noticed last year, and they sent me over to the Philippines to create a feature-length documentary.
I lived with a host family while I took classes in Spanish with Spanish professors at the University of Oviedo, and I was a Spaniard for a semester, and it was the best decision I made as a college student.
We are back on #Griff Sports, and just before we send it back over to Studio B, let's recap men's hoops a little bit. The team hosted VMI in the College Insider Tournament game last Tuesday in a matchup with the highest scoring team in the nation, and it showed. The Griffs fell in this one by a score of 111 to 100. They're led by Chris Perez and Billy Barron, who had 30 points and 24 points respectively. Dom Rainey chipped in 20, and Jordan Heath had 15 of his own. VMI was led by DJ Covington, who had 37 points in the win. Scary stats for anybody that likes some sort of defense.
Yeah, absolutely. And in the end, the men's basketball team finishes with a record of 21-13, a 1-game improvement over last year's record, and a step in the right direction. So right now, we'll send it over to Rox and Jordan in Studio B. Talk a little bit more hoops.
Thanks, guys. Here with Jordan again to talk about men's hoops. A little bit after their 75-72 loss to Iona in the semifinals of MAAC, what can you say about the efforts in that last game from the men?
Well, you know, I don't like the question effort because that's something so speculative. But during the game, I was questioning the commitment to wanting to be where they were. And I think that's fair to do because they had high expectations. They wanted to be in the NCAA tournament, starting with the top, starting with Billy and Chris Perez, Chris Manhertz, and Jordan, you know, their last year. And this was something they had done last year. They'd already did the CIT, CTI. It doesn't, CIT. It doesn't, it's not a tournament that gets a lot of attention. And you could just kind of get that sense that, not that they weren't trying, but that it wasn't do or die like the MAAC tournament was. There wasn't a big, lot of emotion.
Right. even though they didn't get the outcome that they wanted, there's absolutely still a future for men's basketball. Where do you see them next season, or how do you see their future ending up?
Well, I think it's the reality is gonna hit you, and what I mean by that is, normally when you come in and get a new coach, you also start rebuilding a program, and that never happened with Canisius. You got a new coach, and he also brought his son, which turned everything around more so than anyone would have ever expected. But now it's Jim Barron's time to, start bringing in his guys. Some of the guys that were already there when he got there are out, and really build this thing from the ground up. I'm not saying I wouldn't expect them to be a bottom feeder, or you would hope not, certainly, but I think at best maybe a team like Siena was this year, where they surprised a lot of people, got hot at the end as they developed chemistry. You have a guy like Zach Lewis coming back, a guy like Phil Valenti starting to take on bigger roles, and we'll see. We'll see how Barron does.
Definitely interesting to see after a loss of such key contributors, one of them being senior guard Billy Barron, an NBA prospect.
Yeah.
What can you kind of say about the buzz around his future after Canisius?
Well, I talked to Billy today, and he told me he's already got 20-plus workouts set up with NBA teams already. He's going to start kind of like a city-to-city tour come summer and work out with all the teams. He's hoping to, get drafted, obviously. All that information will be in the Griffin for this Friday's Griffin, as far as which teams. But it's for him. It seems like that's his next goal is the NBA. He thinks he can do it. And not only does he think he can do it, he said, he would be great in the NBA. He thinks his skills will translate absolutely. So I'm not going to doubt the guy. It's not a guy I want to doubt.
Well, lots to look forward to for men's hoops and those seniors moving on in their careers. I'll send it back to the desk with Kyle and Joe. Thanks, Jordan.
Thanks, Roxanne and Jordan. Prime analysis, as always. And when we come back, we'll have a spring sports rundown as well as our top play and Golden Performer of the Week. Stay right there.
And we're back on hashtag Griff Sports. And Kyle, we recapped hockey and basketball. Let's jump into what went on in other Griff Sports this past week.
Yeah, let's start with baseball. They swept St. Peter's over the weekend before earning their fourth straight victory over UB on Tuesday. Jake Lumley went 2 for 3 with 2 RBIs and 2 runs scored in the 12-11 come-from-behind victory.
Yeah, UB blew a 10-0 lead in that game. The softball team traveled to Southern California to take part in the Loyola Marymount Invitational. They got off to a strong start with a 3-0 win over Bethune-Cookman, in which Jen Consul pitched 8 scoreless innings. Unfortunately, they went on to lose their next 3 games in that tournament.
They'll be back in Buffalo and hoping to reclaim some momentum. Men's lacrosse earned its first ever win against a ranked opponent as they knocked off 13th ranked Albany 14-10. Vince Gravino had 4 goals, while Tim Edwards contributed a career-high 8 points.
Yeah, 7 assists from Tim Edwards in that game. And finally, women's lacrosse knocked off Robert Morris 18-6 On Monday rather, senior captain Maria Kotis scored her 100th career goal in the contest.
4 total goals from Kotis, who's still riding a lot of momentum from coming on this show a few weeks ago. Looking ahead to this week's games, baseball has a 3-game set with Manhattan, and they'll travel to the wonderful Akron, Ohio to take on the Zips next Wednesday.
Yes, sir, and the Griff softball team travels to Niagara for a 2-game battle of the bridge set, and they'll host the crosstown rival UB Bulls in a doubleheader on Tuesday.
Men's lacrosse is heading right back to Albany on Saturday, this time to face conference foe Siena as they jump back into MAC play.
And the women's lacrosse team will travel to take on Iona on Saturday before returning home to square off against Marist on Wednesday. First 2 games of conference play for the women's lacrosse team should be big.
And of course, you'll be traveling with them. We'll talk a little bit more about women's lacrosse and the other spring sports. Also, Steve Masiello may or may not be pretty cool. We'll have to figure out what's going on with that situation. Of course, top play coming up as well on #GriffSports. We're back on #GriffSports. Let's jump right into our last segment. And Joe, MAC play has either already started or is beginning this weekend for all 4 spring sports. Which team should be most positive as conference play begins?
Well, I mean, I think it's really tough. I think you gotta go. They're all pretty positive. I think softball might be the least positive. They don't have as much momentum, but baseball's been playing well. They got a sweep in their first series, so that's big. I think baseball, you got to be really happy about the way they've been playing. But then, it seemed like it would be an easy, question with, baseball playing so well. But then men's lacrosse goes down to Albany and beats the 13th best team in the nation. That's big. I think men's lacrosse, you got to be excited about that. They're 1-1 in conference play already. And then, of course, I'm a little biased. Women's lacrosse has been playing great. Obviously beating Robert Morris really helps. 18 goals, good to get going. And 3 of the 4 losses that women's lacrosse have come from top 5 teams in the nation, number 1, number 2, and number 5, North Carolina, Syracuse, Boston College. So, I mean, I don't know who should be more confident. I think all the teams look great. Most confident, I'd probably say baseball right now. They're playing great. They've got the pitching. They've got the hitting. Coming back from 10 runs down is very impressive, for anybody. And they came back, I think it was the 6th, 7th, and 8th innings. They just kind of made it happen. So that's a team I look forward to, to really make the most impact so far.
Well, I don't know who should be most confident, but I can tell you who is. Men's lacrosse, their ego has skyrocketed after beating Albany, as it absolutely should. That was a heck of a win. They've already got more wins forward than they had all of last year, and 2 of them against Albany, of course, against Air Force, who's a very tough team. They could surprise a lot of people this year. I thought they'd be improved. I was talking with Coach Mearns as the season was getting ready to go, and he liked the commitment everyone was putting forth, but they could be even better than we anticipated.
Yeah, absolutely. And the next topic, the MAC lost one of its best coaches in Steve Masiello until it didn't. Masiello had a 5-year deal with South Florida in which he'd make over $1 million per year But the deal fell through on Tuesday night when a background check revealed that Mazziello never graduated from the University of Kentucky, where he played under Rick Pitino. And we can see Mazziello chatting on the screen there before Manhattan played Louisville in the NCAA tournament. Kyle, as we take a look over here, what do we see from Mazziello the rest of the way?
Well, it's tough to say with this situation. Yeah, I've never really seen anything like it. The thing I know about Mazziello is that he's a heck of a coach and he can motivate his guys. And we saw how they played against Louisville. Obviously, Southern Florida doesn't want to hire somebody who would say they graduated when they didn't on their resume. But you wonder if he'll just return to Manhattan or if he'll get another chance somewhere. I don't know if anyone would be willing to hire him.
Yeah, and you know what? I was doing some reading online the other day, and Mazziello, the first question I think everybody needs to ask is, how in the heck did he get a gig somewhere without graduating? And nobody really looked into this. You know, they just assumed that because he went to Kentucky, everybody knew about that, that he would be all right. Now, obviously, questions arose regarding his Kentucky Derby, investigation while he was still at Louisville. I think, this is really big. Manhattan has placed him on leave to go figure out the situation, kind of sort it out. I think the biggest thing, though, is should Manhattan decide they don't want him back, I think any school in the nation would be incredibly lucky to have him come in. And you know what, I was thinking, say Jim Barron, retires, or Mazziello takes a year off, and then maybe, who knows what happens with Jim Barron in the future. We know his contract is up next year. If the Griffs have an opening and Steve Mazziello has his, has his degree, if anybody has an opening in the nation, you've got to be coming at this guy. He's got to be one of the best young coaches in the nation, and trying to lock him up is really important for any basketball team that wants to be, going to the next level.
Sounds like you're pushing Jim Barron out the door
already. I'm not pushing Jim Barron out the door. I know that his contract, as of right now, is up in a year, and who knows what he'll do. He's getting kind of old, and Billy's done. You never know what's going to happen. I'm just saying, it's potential that if the Griffs have an opening, I would absolutely love to have him over here.
Yeah, he's a rising star, and I would think that he would get this worked out eventually. And moving on to our last topic, #Griff Sports would like to say goodbye to Mike Scott, the famous play-by-play announcer for the women's basketball team, as made famous by this call on a Tia Mills buzzer beater.
Mills coming away from Canisius. Mills at half court, puts it up. Oh, you didn't know? You'd better call somebody. Tiana Mills banks one home from half court, and the Golden Griffins win.
Mike Scott, tremendous. We'll certainly miss him next year, and we featured that on our very first episode of #Griff Sports. Joe, rank that on a scale of 1 to 10.
Well, we can all learn something from the great Mike Scott. And, I'm going to take a page out of Scott Mosier's book. Last year, I came back from winter break, and I talked to Scott Mosier about, how we got a #1 on ESPN's top 10 plays. And he says, the play itself, I'd say it's about a 7. Just the idea of hitting the buzzer beater. But with the call, it brings it up to a 10. And I think that's absolutely true. The call itself was incredible, and Mike Scott's definitely going to be missed around the women's basketball program, around campus, just in general. He's got some talent. I don't even know. Maybe he's practiced that line. Who knows? Because I think that was brilliant. Absolutely. So
The fact that he came up with it on the spot, I think the question is who replaces Mike Scott?
Well, Kyle Ferrara.
Certainly.
I came up with that on the spot.
That's an easy answer, Joe.
Well, yeah, of course. So let's take a look at this week's Golden Performer of the Week. It's Tim Edwards, junior midfielder of the men's lacrosse team. Edwards had a career-high 8 points in the team's win over Albany on Tuesday. He also won 9 of 13 faceoffs and picked up a game-high 6 ground balls. Incredible performance from the junior.
And our top play this week is actually from a few weeks ago, but we haven't had the opportunity to give full credit yet. Rob Poole coming down the court. Would you like some turkey with that stuffing? Zach Lewis says.
And you threw me off again. And you know what? A great call. This has been #Griff Sports. I'm Joe Retigliano.
And I'm Kyle Ferrara. As always, you can find us online at griffintv.net. On Facebook, just type in #Griff Sports in the search bar, and on Twitter at GriffSports4. One lucky new follower will learn how to have perfect posture by Jordan LaBarber.
Good night, everybody.